Yes. Well, Heritage, the organization, I mean, they do actually feel very strongly about that.
Oh yeah.
And that's why they're trying to get what happened.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
And they're going to fight for that, I think, for a long time, because the determination that if he gave up being a prince, he wasn't a working royal, he shouldn't have the all the benefits of being that. And why should he? Other people have been sent out or, been told off in whatever way that they do tell people off. And they want to have that proof, especially that he's been so rude. But the judge is quite firm about not releasing anything. But we will have to see, because after the, who gets into running the country, they will make a decision on that as well, I think. But I think that it's all getting very much in the past. They're not making an impact at all now. It's getting smaller and smaller. And I don't think people care so much where they go and what they do. And certainly Harry seems to want to come back to the UK, but I think that's very dangerous. It's another story.
Do you see me laughing, my nigga?
Yes, that
I
is another
think
story.
you
We
have.
don't want him. We don't want him. But look, there was some discussion, Angela, that maybe Prince William was handing Harry the tiniest of olive branches. This is because he referenced him, I believe, for the first time publicly in 6 years. Is that right?
I don't know.
Yes, yes. And that is because he's taken part in a documentary which comes out in British TV tomorrow. And it's all about homelessness, which he's very, very keen on, to try and get rid of it altogether. And he started telling stories about how he went there with his mother. And Harry told me stories how he did as well.
Wow.
And they were very touching. It was brilliant of Diana, because she was fed up of anybody being too spoilt. And they had so many toys, you could fill a whole castle with them. And she wanted them to see how other people lived.
Nice.
And so she took them to see the organizations. And it was very, very, it left a memory that they still both remember. And I think that was brilliant.
Wait for it. Here it comes. Almost there.
I remember William said that he thought how awful it must be not to have a nice home. That's when he was 11, not to have a nice home, and not to know where to go. It must be so upsetting, so difficult. So that sort of stayed there with him.
Okay.
And I think that she also made them stand in queues when they wanted to see Father Christmas. She didn't want them to go straight to the front, although they were offered to do that, because you have to tell the shop in advance because of the safety.
What do you mean by that?
And she made them queue, and it was quite a long queue, and they got a bit bored, and she said, good, you can't get things just like that. I mean, she was brilliant like that with them, and their adoration of her has maintained very powerfully. And William really, really wants to do this.
Wow.
Because he knows that his mother would be pleased. But the one thing that I still haven't been able to discover is whether this is for homeless in the UK, people who are English, people who are perhaps out of the army and sleeping in the streets, or are we going to have that for people who are coming over in small boats? I don't know about that, and I wish I could, because it's going to be very difficult.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, he's going to do it. At one point, he said he wanted to get rid of it altogether, but he realizes that's not going to happen. He said, I'm not saying I'm going to solve the world's homelessness problem, but he believes he can help solve the following: Aberdeen, Bournemouth, Christchurch, Poole, Lambeth, Newport, Northern Ireland, and Sheffield. They're all the flagship locations. And will receive up to 500,000 in funding to kickstart his ideas. Well, that's terrific. I think that's wonderful.
But you're making a really important point, Angela. You're making a really important point.
Okay.
Because we have a homelessness crisis, in part because we have a housing crisis in the UK. Why do we have a housing crisis? Because there is mass uncontrolled immigration and an invasion of our country via the southern border, with quite literally tens of thousands arriving on small boats. And obviously the royals don't get political, although we know that King Charles, then Prince Charles, criticised the Rwanda scheme, which was introduced by the Boris Johnson government, or at least the idea of it was introduced by the Boris Johnson government to try and stop this illegal immigration. So it is interesting, isn't it? Because obviously everyone wants to stop the plight of homelessness.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
But it very quickly verges into being a political issue when you look at the discussion of, well, what causes homelessness? And that is where William has to be very careful, because as you say, if it emerges that all of these new homes are actually going to migrants or illegal immigrants, then I could see it actually, not being a positive thing for him. But I'm sure that he's going to be much more careful about that. But we will see.
Yes.
Time will tell.
I think he will be careful. But one's own heart here goes out to people who actually were in the army, were in the military, gave up their to do the good for us, and then they get left out, which they are at the moment.
Boy.
So it's very important, I think, to get it right and
Exactly.
to do what is good for this country. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it for people who just come in and need help on their boats, but it also must work out for British people.
No, totally agree. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes.
Do it! Just do it!
Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.
Is Prince Harry about to be cut off even further from his family and his home country? What is Prince William planning for Trooping the Colour? Does the King want to spend more time with Archie and Lilibet? We'll answer all those and more in another packed show. Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and back this week to talk about the big royal stories is the Daily Mail's royal editor Rebecca English, the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large Charlotte Griffiths, and the Daily Mail's diary editor Richard Eden. Welcome, Dream Trio. Well, before we get into it, a reminder to join our growing gang of subscribers to the Daily Mail Royals YouTube channel. All you need to do is please click that subscribe button, and that way you won't miss any of our great royal videos, and we will have a lot of those coming up this summer. Let's get going. Our Rebecca is back from France, where she was covering the royal involvement in the D-Day commemorations, of course, for the 80th anniversary. Rebecca, the whole occasion, big test for Prince William, right? And it seems he passed with flying colours.
Yeah, I can say what a moving and well done event it was. I mean, I think the youngest veteran we met was 98. And the oldest was 104, and they were just, I mean, their stories were incredible. And yeah, it was, I had a big piece for the Mail about it last week, because my colleague Robert Hardman was covering the King, and I thought, actually, this is a very big test for William. I would argue it's his biggest kind of role he's had on the international stage, certainly since becoming heir to the throne, but I would say even before that. And I think he did a really great job. Basically, the King was out there, of course, and he
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
was covering the British event, but his doctors have said to him, look, it's going to be a bit much trying to do the big international event at Omaha Beach in the afternoon. So William deputised. He was in doing the Canadian event in Juneau Beach in the morning, and then joined Biden, Zelensky, Macron, and I think there was, I counted 7 presidents in the afternoon. There was a Grand Duke, several Crown Princes, a King, and there was our William. And I thought he was
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
incredibly statesmanlike and dignified when he needed to be, but where he is very good is with the veterans himself. You know, incredibly respectful, but very approachable. You know, and really wanted to listen to these men's incredible stories. So. Yeah, I think it was a big tick for him.
Amazing. Now, Richard, William has been praised from all sorts of quarters, hasn't he, for his statesman-like appearance?
People have sort of said, oh, he's entering his sort of statesman era. And
that doesn't make sense.
I mean, obviously, it's
Eras are very popular with Taylor Swift in town. Everyone's got to have one.
I think, you know, it's sad in a way that he's having to stand in for his father. You know, ideally, we would like to see the King carrying out these duties, but it's been really reassuring to have him, William, doing them. He's, you know, carried them off with aplomb, and I think it hasn't just been in Normandy as well. There've been other events this week. There was one very
Wait for it.
statesman-like photograph that they published from their official account of him on the way to an engagement in Wales, and I think, yeah, it's just reassuring that that we have someone ready to deputise and who looks the part.
It's interesting, isn't it, Charlotte? I mean, even since William was a schoolboy, he's been described invariably as the reluctant royal. But, you know, in events like this, he really steps up. He does deliver. Do you think he is so reluctant?
Very good question.
I think he was for years reluctant, because there was always this context of how to delay him becoming an active royal. Do you remember when he was at university, of course, he had to be protected. Then when he was a helicopter pilot and he...
Wait for it.
He lived with Kate in Wales very remotely. It was all about delaying that moment when he has to be, you know, a king in waiting, so that he could have as normal a life as possible. But I think that's sort of over now. I think this is the moment he's going to emerge as a future king.
Fact.
And I think it's been a long process of accepting, I think, for him, but I think he's sort of there, he's done it now.
Now, obviously, lots of effusiveness for William there from our panel and all sorts of places. But Rebecca, the French president's wife, Brigitte Macron...
Stop it.
...came in for a bit of a dig, didn't she, over a supposed faux pas involving Camilla.
Yeah, and actually there's a few critics of Queen Camilla as well. I mean, it was, I'll be honest, it was a little bit awkward. They were standing paying their respects at the memorial at the British event on Thursday morning, and as they turned to walk away, Brigitte Macron kind of put out her hand to try and kind of almost like hold Camilla's hand or just kind of show her the way, and Camilla didn't really respond. But what it was down to actually was that, you know, Queen Camilla's done a lot of these memorials in her time, and you should never actually turn your back on them. So she was walking backwards while Brigitte Macron was kind of turning away from it slightly. So I think she was just trying to keep...
Wait for it.
...her lane, for want of a better word. It was a little bit awkward, but I was with the women in Paris last year and they got to know each other very well, and there was a genuinely warm relationship there. And I think at the end of the day, it's almost a bit unseemly to kind of go on about it.
Okay, I'm listening. You have my attention.
Because they were there actually respecting, you know, the thousands of men who laid down their lives for their respective countries.
Is it true, Richard? I think the way the late Queen used to do things, that it was very much a no-go to sort of stay to a more convenient date.
Well, it's the official celebration, although I don't think the weather forecast looks that good this Saturday.
I really do feel for Katherine, though, at the moment, because imagine how difficult it is. That on the one hand, I'm sure she'd love to be there, particularly, you know, if the children are going, but on the other hand, she may not feel up to it. So I think we, you know, just have to say, you know, there's no pressure on her whatsoever.
Yeah, and I hope she doesn't feel that. But
and it would be oh, sorry, Joe, I was going to say it'd be a bonus. And if she wasn't, I think it would be quite nice to
Wait for it.
see her parents there, because they are such an enormous force in her life and William's life in helping them, you know, cope with these expanding roles and with their young family. And I think it'd be a lovely touch to see Mr. and Mrs. Middleton
They've been
there.
so dutiful while she's been ill as well. They've really taken charge of the children, and they've just been completely holding the Waleses together behind the scenes.
Wow.
So it would be a really nice thank you to them.
And they've been so discreet over the years. They've never said a word to anyone, and they've just supported the family. I think it would be
You serious?
a nice touch. But who knows? If she is there, it's a bonus, and if she's not, you know, continue getting better.
Well, let's see. And you know, we wish the Princess of Wales the best of health as ever. Now, Charlotte, what other big events can we expect to see? It's really kicking off in Britain.
It is.
Very good question.
Well, it's June, so high society loves June because in theory the weather's good, which it's not this year, but it is the big society month, and it all kicks off really with Royal Ascot next week. There is Order of the Garter on Monday.
Fact.
But on Tuesday to Saturday, it's Royal Ascot. I'm going on Wednesday, you're going on Wednesday. And it's just it's a really great time because the royals, you know, put on all their best dresses and their biggest hats. And Charles, you know, Charles wasn't really into Ascot for years, but last year,
Here it comes.
yeah, obviously he was king, and they named the King Charles Stakes after him, which is a race on Tuesday. And he's really taken charge of Ascot. He loves Ascot, after all, it turns out. So he's going to be there, I think, every day if he can manage it, and certainly on the Tuesday.
I love Ascot. Will you be
Okay.
wearing a massive Princess Anne-style plume in your hair that day, Rebecca?
Well, I'm in the royal clothes. You have to wear a hat,
You do.
but I actually think the best hat wearer, aside from Princess Anne, is Camilla. I think she looks.
Well, that's my long-standing opinion.
So that was a f***ing lie.
Her hat game is unrivaled.
Strong hat game.
Yes, but are you looking forward to it?
Oh, I am. It's really good fun. I mean, I know nothing about horses, and I kind of tend to pick the ones that have got like a name that is my grandparents' name, or so, you know, some residence there. I mean, don't count on me for any tips.
You're back.
guys.
What?
It's the King's horse, though. He's got a horse running.
Oh,
Not sure
yeah,
which day yet.
I
haven't
absolutely,
decided.
and I will. Yeah, I would do if it was someone, you know, that there was a.
Let's place a bet together on the King's horse.
Okay,
Oh
we'll do
my
that on
gosh.
Wednesday.
What could possibly go wrong? You mentioned Order of the Garter
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
a moment ago, Charlotte. That's another big hat event, isn't it? Can you explain that for our viewers?
Yeah, I mean, it's more than just a hat. It's a kind of velvet cap with a massive ostrich plume, and I don't think any of us could rival that. But it's a real hardy annual of the royal calendar. The Order of the Garter, most ancient order of chivalry in the UK. I think it's 24 members off the top of my head, a maximum, and they're all appointed personally by the king for service to crown and country, so it's nothing to do with the government. I mean, you do get a lot of
Although there are some prime ministers in it.
You do get a lot of ex-prime ministers there, but obviously you'll see Prince William, Duke of Edinburgh, and actually the Duchess of Gloucester this year. She's now been appointed to the Order of the Garter for her years of loyal service, so she'll be able to accompany her husband, the Duke of Gloucester, for the first time. Oh my God! It's just, you see them process down from Windsor Castle to St George's Chapel, and there's lots of kind of doffing of hats. It's classically, quintessentially British.
And you'll be there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be watching. Obviously, I won't be doing any hat doffing.
You serious?
That's just everywhere. I kind of feel like one day that she'll be just sitting on the couch with Charles and Camilla, and they'll just go, "Oh, hi, Rebecca," and just continue watching television.
I just go home and cook tea after that. I mean, my life is very boring, really.
Oh my goodness.
Do you know who won't be there, though? I was going to say is Prince Andrew.
Oh no, he won't be.
He's not allowed to process anymore,
yes.
And he's not very happy about it.
But he will be there for the lunch, so he's just not allowed to take part in the
not allowed to be seen. He's
part.
not allowed to be seen.
Wait for it.
It's awful, isn't
See,
it?
I'd be more outraged about missing the lunch than the processing, but that's just me.
Andrew loves to process. It's his favourite thing, is to be seen as the grand statesman, but unfortunately he's had his wings clipped on that front.
Yes, he has.
Processing. Stay watching Palace Confidential, because we'll bring you updates from all of those events and more, of course, over the next few weeks. Now, Rebecca, lots more to come before we move on to the next section, but you were out at a rather hilarious-looking event with a mix of celebrity royalty and real royalty.
This was the highlight of my week this week. So on Tuesday, they held the inaugural King's Foundation Awards at St James's Palace, and it's basically King Charles's baby, and they were giving out awards to students and...
What?
alumni, supporters of his kind of conglomerate of charities, and you know they do a lot of educational programs, highlighting artisan crafts, protecting the environment. But it shows you his clout because
what is he doing?
See, there was a great roster of people there. You had David Beckham, who's obviously famously now the latest ambassador for the King's Foundation. You had Sir Rod Stewart, his wife Lady Penny, Alan Titchmarsh, who I ended up talking